Hi there, and welcome to the Curious Collective podcast, conversations designed for the veteran and first responder community to bring awareness to those holistic practices that help us live our best life. So, tap into the wisdom and knowledge of our guests to heal, transform, and live as your true soulful self. Hello, listeners, and welcome. Today we have with us the amazing Jordan McCallum. I love this guy. He's like a brother from another mother, and he's coming to you today to share his wisdom. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for having me on.
You're so welcome. Now, tell us, Jordan, what is it that you're doing these days? Like, what's making your heart sing in this world, and what magic are you spreading?
Yeah, so a lot of Qigong, a lot of meditation. So that for my personal practice, especially, and yeah, I like to pass whatever sort of disciplines and methods I use myself onto other people for them to experience the great benefits that they bring.
Mm.
Veteran community, but also civilian sector, a bit of corporate as well. So a bit of a diverse background for people that I work with.
Yeah, and Qigong, I before I met you had never heard of it. It's something that I think is amazing, and everyone within the veteran first responder community should sort of at least give it a go. Can you explain what it is a bit more and why you like it?
Yeah, for sure. So I originally started off with yoga,
Hmm.
and I got introduced to yoga, Bikram's yoga, by a fellow commando friend of mine in 2007. And so I started off with yoga, just movement, breathing, asana practice. Even though it was hot yoga, 90 minutes, 26 postures, two breathing
Workout.
exercises, quite the challenge, but yeah, awesome at the same time. So
Mm.
I kept doing that for a while, like on and off. I mean, I'd go on deployment for months and exercise and all that, and sort of not do it and come back when I was around and train when I was on barracks and stuff. So I originally started off in the yoga, and it got to the point where I couldn't even do the yoga anymore because a lot of my physical injuries were catching up to me. I couldn't do a simple downward dog or upwards dog, go around into chaturanga dandasana, so the plank posture lowering down. My shoulder was just kaput, and I needed that was getting me through, essentially, like managing my symptoms of just stress, and at that time undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder. So I needed something that had the same concepts as yoga, but was gentler on my body, that I could manage with my injuries, my back, my knees, my hips, my shoulders, my neck. Pretty much the same as most veterans that have done,
Yeah.
a bit of time in the Defence Force, were just riddled with injuries. So, and I found that just a game changer. It really was. It was a way for my body to calm the nervous system, to activate that parasympathetic side of the nervous system, the rest and digest side, but also move the body in that way where it promoted blood circulation, improved immune function and digestion as well. So it was really, for me,
Huge.
a huge. It was really the game changer, and almost a one stop shop for myself to train, have exercise, go into a discipline, like a routine, a structure, so to speak.
Mhm.
But also, it was mentally and emotionally, I felt amazing afterwards,
Mm.
and psychologically as well. So a lot of the negativity or a lot of the depression that I was experiencing would it just let me come up for air
Mm.
initially at the start. So yeah, it was really a one stop shop for me, that I'd dedicate that time in the mornings to practice 1 hour of qigong, and yeah, it was literally a game changer. But I'd say the difference for the qigong is, if people don't know what qigong is, which most people don't, it's just similar to tai chi. Soft, gentle, conscious movement that's synchronized with breathing.
Mm.
So, and really, it's similar, like the same concept, like any movement practice. More, in a general umbrella of mind body practices, is moving and breathing. And
Yeah.
depending on how you want to move and breathe is is up to you, essentially. So
Mm.
keep the concepts the same, but you can change the asana or the posture or the movement depending on what your body craves and what your body and nervous system need. And that's so different for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was to teach serving members of the Australian Defence Force that were physically able, that didn't really have any injuries. I mean, everyone has little niggle injuries here. No one doesn't have anything, but people that can do a normal yoga practice, say, then I'd actually recommend yoga over Qigong for serving members, because you're able to use your body more. You're able to use it in a physical work, get the physical aspect out as well, which most people in the Defence Force are searching for. They want that physicality of it. Whereas the Qigong is great, but at the same time, a lot of Defence Force people it's maybe too light and gentle for, say, a younger person, without, dedicating yourself to it, 2 or 3 hours a day.
And they might not be ready to slow down just yet.
Exactly, yeah. The level of connection to themselves, or not even that, but the fast-paced life and tempo that working full time or the Defence Force brings, their needs and circumstances are different. However, once a lot of people experience, or maybe towards the back end of their career, have a lot of stress build up in the system, and they're more sensitive to stress, the Qigong is perfect, because they're probably carrying physical injuries. It's obviously the manifestation of stress in the body keeps score, Bessel van der Kolk, all that type of thing, like like all the stress that gets held within the body and the mind and the breath. So that's where the Qigong's perfect. And that was my experience as well, like throughout my career, as I started off with yoga, got into the physical, real Ashtanga style of yoga, where it's really physical, and I loved it, lived and breathed it for a few years, but then it caught up with me again, and then so to where I am now, just practicing with the Qigong.
And there is just so much in what you've just said. I could just unpack so many little elements of it. But what I'd really love to explore on this podcast with you is, we love the yoga and the Ashtanga that you're doing at the start. And we've spoken about this when we've been together at veterans retreats and things, for that physical body. And as well, the Qigong, getting you into your body is one element of it. But if we think about, when was it within your practice, when you started, when you first learned, until you realized that you're actually, through doing the yoga, tapping into the emotional release work through the moving asanas and things like that?
Yeah, the emotional one, that's a good question. Pretty deep one as well.
Yeah, I love it.
So a lot of the times with the yoga, I'd go on sort of, I don't know what you call it, retreats, sabbaticals, long service.
Yeah.
Like a period of time away where I'd just focus on that.
And you went to India as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So 4 months in India, long service, and Indonesia 3 times for 5 weeks at a time. So, and also, I've been to Europe, Slovakia, training with Master Yang and all that as well. So I've done a lot of trips away, but a lot of trips in Australia too, just different retreat settings. But so when I was able to remove myself from the day-to-day living, weekly grind, the stresses, the pressures, the expectations, the social structures, etc., and just focus on yoga or Qigong, or meditation, that is when the benefits just skyrocket. When you give yourself time for, there's a lot of ways to explain the experience depending on where you sit or what terminology or language you can use. I mean, I can explain it essentially 2 different ways: in a Western way or in a sort of Eastern yogic sort of Chinese.
Oh, give us both.
So okay. Well, I'll say with the Western style first. If I go off on a tangent, just bring me back to the other one, because so the time away to India, especially Indonesia as well, was, I really felt, because my mind was so busy, really active, I really felt, so my cerebral cortex, my thinking, my cognitive part of the brain just slowed down. And when I slowed down, I could feel my body more. I could feel my breath more, because I wasn't worried or concentrating on what I've got to do today, going, all these thought patterns. It was just simply living in the moment, day in, day out. But I wasn't stressed.
Yeah.
I was calm. So, and that's probably the key indicator is, over a long period of time in the Defence Force, I look back and there was, I've been involved in a lot of different high tempo, high stress, traumatic situations and events, but none of them, not one single one, knocked me off my perch, so to speak. You know, like, yeah, they were stressful, but at the time I loved it.
Yeah.
Like that's the challenges, you go, especially, you join different areas of the Defence Force for certain things. And I definitely wanted to be involved in all the craziness.
Yeah.
However, that creates a toll that, comes with, an accumulation of stresses. And that got to a point where I was just, highly stressed, chronic stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, all those types.
And the nervous system was overloaded.
So the nervous system was overloaded. So when I was in India, Indonesia, in an environment where that wasn't being activated, but even more so, learning techniques that specifically activate the parasympathetic side of the autonomic nervous system, so the rest and digest side through the vagus nerve, it just completely gives yourself, I wouldn't say a relaxed state, it gives you in a state of deep restoration. They're labels, and you can, people can probably just assume that it's just like a deep restoration of your nervous system, which enables your body to recover, rejuvenate, replenish all the areas where you haven't had time to recover.
And you're sort of out of your mind and in your body. So the body's actually able to think and do. Exactly,
yeah. And when you're moving, you move and you're actually like, like that area of my back where it was just numb before, it was a big blockage and it was so tight. Now it starts to loosen up and you can actually move through it more with the blood circulation and you can feel it more. And then you gain mobility, flexibility, and that has a direct translation to how your mind operates, because the mind and body are connected.
Yeah.
So when that happens, it's literally freedom in your own mind from the restrictions that you place on yourself. Not sort of restriction you place on yourself, but the demands as well. Then it's a complex sort of.
Kind of unconsciously do it because you're just cracking on with things and getting the job done, and you're like, don't worry about it, body. You'll be right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And when we lead busy lives, our diet usually isn't optimal because we're so rushed, and nutrients get sort of on a low priority, and a lot of different things. But that was sort of how some of my experiences when I was able to remove myself from all the pressures and stress and commitments of daily life and really concentrate on myself internally. That it was just a totally different experience of life.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you then so say you went on your sabbatical, your long service, and did this amazing experience where you dropped into your body and did the yoga and stuff, and then you go back to your high tempo, fast paced, demanding job. Did you start to integrate parts of that into your daily routines?
Yeah, I did. And it's been the job's not complete yet. I'm still trying to do it at different levels. Like it's just going from gross to more subtle levels now. So at the start, because I was doing Ashtanga, very physical practice, and I was still in the SAS at the time, in my last couple of years. So I was really kind of burning the candle at both ends, so to speak. And I found that as soon as I come back to normal life in Australia, my stress levels go up and I lose a lot of that, probably the magic of it,
The deep connectedness.
The deep connectedness. Yeah, I still maintain a good level of stress, but man, to really get that deeper meaning at every moment, it's really, I found that, the environment needs to be optimal. But then again, when you really get down to it, it's just my reaction and projection to things that are happening. So there is other areas, but there's a saying, isn't there? Like, monks go into a cave and meditate, but can they do it out in the street when, in the middle of a highway when there's, cars passing by? And then, there's different people's different opinions of that. So my opinion of that would be, well, first you have to realize what it is. You have to connect with that, because it's like a small tree. if you don't nurture a small tree, water it. Sometimes when the wind's blowing, have a nice little stick there where it can sort of follow it up, because it's very vulnerable at the same time. The support, the structure, then it's going to fall over. And
that's a great analogy.
So it's my experience as well. You know, like at these vulnerable times where you're trying to build up this sort of positive vibration, but at the same time, to do that, you've got to remove the stress. So
and stay grounded.
So and it's hard. It's a skill set. Yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, meditation, all these, you know, they're probably missing a few, but all these different mind-body practices, they they work, but it's really just a way to come back to yourself, but also to remove all the negativity, the stress, and all that too.
And it's the umbrella of it all, I feel, is like awareness, self-awareness. You know, if the pain comes up, like you were mentioning, with the energy moving through that particular section, or the fascia releasing, or whatever it is being aware of, okay, well, what does that mean in my body, and how can I, you know, getting curious about that mind-body connection and going deeper as well. Because I think like awareness equals freedom, and then awareness with action equals like unlimited freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's a balancing act, isn't it?
Balance. That's a good one too, because I feel as well, if you're in your, you know, SAS job, is that's like highly masculine dominated space where you're constantly go, do, and all the structure and all the processes, to then find within you, within that soldier, where are the feminine parts of me, and how can I bring that into this space? That would have been really tricky.
Yeah. We don't want to scare too many males off, talk about too much about the feminine, but yeah.
No, it's important. That's what this is about.
It is, but it's my experience is just to bring it back to balance.
Yeah.
And obviously that's the spectrum, the masculine, feminine. But I think the polarization of, you know, what the lives that we live today, people can get a bit freaked out by, you know, and same with on the opposite end, the feminine getting too scared to be a bit of masculine as well. But
yeah, it's actually so beautiful and not scary. I went to one of your presentations recently, and you had this amazing slide, and it was balance is the key, and I won't forget it. I've saved it onto my phone and all, and it was the picture of the nervous system, and then the picture of that yin yang symbol to bring balance into your life in order to restore your nervous system. So yes, you've taught me a lot along the years, Jordan.
Likewise, Katie, likewise.
And I, speaking from experience with regards to Qigong, I had never tried it until I'd met Jordan, and I tried it at a 3-day veterans retreat that we were facilitators at. And the first time I did it, I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, and I couldn't get into my body, and I was overthinking the crap out of it. And then consecutive times that I have tried it, I have been able to connect to it. And I think the way that you cue people when you do it is so important, about trying not to overthink it. And as long as you're moving and breathing and connecting into the body, you're still doing it. Like,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a good teacher to just give those specific cues a lot of the time. Like for people that are trying it for the first time, I try to sit them down for 10 minutes beforehand. Just give them a soldier's 5. And just explain it, and just explain a few concepts, because that will, you know, increase their positive experience of the whole situation. Just with a little bit of a soldier's 5 beforehand, just a bit of a heads up of a few key things that you're supposed to be concentrating on, or you're supposed to be doing. And an example of that is just through your breathing. Yeah. You know, like the breath, as you know, Katie, doing all your breath work stuff, that's the gateway to the autonomic nervous system. So it's the brainstem area of our brain, which controls our digestion, our breathing, our heart rate. So it's the reptilian part, or the oldest part of our brain, or our nervous or circuitry, so to speak, because the spinal column, it's actually the spinal column and the autonomic nervous system, the brainstem, is created when we're in the womb as an embryo, is actually created first before the thinking mind. So it's actually older. And have you ever experience, like, engineering, or I'm not an engineer, but I'm saying systems, or, the real intelligence is the things that create
Foundations.
But the more as a structure, usually the intelligence is more at its core, like the nucleus of a cell. Like at the extremities, they've got all important things to do, but the core intelligence is actually created first, and then it expands out there from the micro to the macro. So it's the way I view it is, spinal column first, with all the and then into the brain stem, and then sort of to the thinking mind, the prefrontal cortex. So it actually creates, or it started from the small into the large. So learning how to activate that part using the breath, going back into, just say, a normal Tai Chi, Qigong, or yoga session, is how you're breathing. And in another way, how are you moving? So there's, like everything, and that's why I love talking about duality and polarity, is when you breathe, so there's a spectrum. You talk about and you know, Katie, through the breath work, is you can ramp your nervous system up just by breathing quickly into the chest, or you can really calm your nervous system down, breathing into the belly through the nose. So you got two ends of the spectrum there. So there's that. So depending on how you're moving, say if you're doing an arduous yoga session, or a Qigong posture where you're sitting there holding your hands up for half an hour, that gets pretty can get pretty pretty
full on. I don't know if I could.
So depending on, and so that's why I like the combination of the Qigong and the movement practices, because you've got the physical part, the movement, but also the breathing, where you're trying to align and coordinate those two areas, where they both have their polarity or spectrum within those two as well, to join them to try and achieve the outcome that you want, whether it's ramping the nervous system up or calming it down. So you can do it different ways, and there's no right or wrong. That's the great thing. There's no right or wrong. It's depending on what you need as an individual. Back when I was younger, man, going to ramp the nervous system up, you feel alive, you feel great, you're ready to get into things, you're so amped up. So there's no right or wrong. It's just depending on, you need to sort of
listening to your body.
Listen to your body, but if you know sort of that you need to calm yourself down, then sort of search or try and engage in practices that are going to activate that
and help you find your flow. I mean, I like removing rigidity from your life. I know when I first started the Qigong with you, I'm like, oh God, I feel so stiff and awkward. But then you start to relax into it, and you feel the flow and the movement, and the body sort of surrenders a little.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a great thing about the immersion programs, or when you remove yourself and you're on a course or a retreat setting, is the connection to yourself, and you actually start to feel, instead of being a bit uncoordinated or not feeling connection to your body, then your mind spins up. But after a few days of doing it, your mind comes down and you actually become present, and then it's a totally different experience.
It's see what unfolds from there.
Exactly.
So if the listeners are wanting to find out more, maybe about Qigong, about meditation, or even if they're wanting to explore the yoga, if they're still in their sort of active wanting to sort of just keep it going phase, what advice do you have for people that are just wanting to start something?
Just probably, if they're a veteran, then I'll probably say track someone down that's a veteran, because you can just, especially if you've got some high stress history there, you can sort of you can walk into the wrong yoga class or the wrong studio where it's going to ramp your nervous system up. So I'll just do a little bit of research, get into contact with someone that you trust that can probably explain it for 5 or 10 minutes, or put you into recommendation for a certain type of style, whether it be, a yin or a restorative or a soft hatha yoga, something like that, if it's close sort of to a studio nearby. all the Qigong, Tai Chi type things. So yeah, I just sort of, kind of probably talk to a veteran that has got experience in this, just to make sure you don't go into the wrong class.
Then you get turned away, like you get dissuaded by it and like, oh, this isn't for me. But it could very well could be.
Well, yeah, or you might just, get an injury as well. If you jump into a class where they're doing a lot of downward dogs, upward dogs, chucking a handstand, or, like something that.
Yeah, no thanks.
They're just not designed.
Yin, please. I'll have yin.
Yeah. So, because a lot of people get injured, and a lot of people stress themselves out because they're doing it in a way that's not nurturing for them.
And so you've got a website and a business that's called Qigong with Jordan, and I know you've taught me a lot. So anywhere that this podcast is posted, there will be links to Jordan's website. But for those that are interested in trying Qigong, what do you sort of let people know about with regards to that?
Yeah, so as in what context?
If they're just wanting to get started.
Oh yeah, just reach out onto the website, send us a text. I'd found the best package for people is an online beginners course for 6 weeks, where you do it 1 hour a week for 6 weeks. That's the best for beginners, in my opinion. I mean, in person is better than online, but I've just found that, the convenience wise, and everyone living busy lives, that sort of fits better. And the first session, I explain all the theory, go for a little bit of movement, and then you learn 1 or 2 movements each week, and you build upon it. And the last week is set up as a flow class. So you do movement each time, but the 6th week is set up where it's no talking at all. And I do a lead class.
Bring it all together.
Bring it all together and give them a real taste of what the flow is. Because in the previous weeks are just learning the movements. So because there is that cerebral thinking mind aspect to the movement. I mean, they're all simple movements, the ones that I teach, but you're still thinking about it for a little bit of time until you figure it out.
Your muscle memory kicks in.
Yeah, exactly. So so it gives them time to learn the movements, progress, and we do the same movements like each week. We go over it and over it and sort of revise. So yeah, it's a good package just for beginners, just to get a bit of a taste from it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And have you made that yourself? That's you teaching all the classes?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I'll check it out.
Yeah. It's a good little it's just 1 hour. I'll probably maybe increase it to 1 hour 10 maybe next time. But
and are you still doing your own daily practice of Qigong? It's your sort of go-to?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's I crave it. Yeah, I have days off and that, but I just love it. My body wants to move after a few days off, and I was like, okay, yep, I've got the energy there to put into the practice, and I just feel so much better afterwards, and my body just feels like it wants to work out now. The first few years, sometimes it was a bit of a mental game because the body was so worn out and depleted, but now it's re-energizes, vitalized, and recovers, and now it wants to move. So
I love those 3 words.
Yeah, but now I kind of my daily weekly practice is it changes every sort of year depending on what I need.
Yeah, we evolve, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. I love everything that you have shared with us so far today, and I know that there's so much knowledge and wisdom inside that head of yours, and I think it will definitely get you back on at some stage to talk more into all the things that you're doing, maybe even some beautiful workshops throughout next year. Here in the Brisbane area, we're in the Brisbane area, so anyone that wants to know more for face-to-face stuff, connect in with us. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom, Jordan.
No worries, Katie. Thanks for having me on, and appreciate the time you spent to listen to what I have to say.
Thank you, listeners. Katie out.